These are going to be some of my favorite stretches, and I hope they're yours too. We'll begin standing. So before we do anything, let's just check in, see how we're doing. We stand with our feet about hip-width apart. Try not to be perfect and correct. Just get a sense of how you feel. So let your arms hang loose. Breathe in and out through your nose. We're just tuning in a little bit. We're just pressing the pause button, tuning in. Do we feel even on our feet, left and right? Do we feel our entire footprint in the ground? Do we feel tight anywhere? Do we feel loose anywhere? There are no wrong answers. We're just getting a sense of where we're at. Okay. Good. So now we've made that mental note. Let's do a little bit of shaking. We'll wipe the slate clean and then we'll start doing some stretches. Okay. So shaking, we just keep our feet glued to the ground and we just kind of do, I think about it just like hopping up and down. It's kind of weird. Keep your feet glued on the ground. And we just bring that sort of shaking and that trembling feeling up through our feet, through our legs, through our hips, through the spine, shoulders, arms. Try to let your skull just kind of wiggle around if you can. You're just breathing in and out through the mouth. Maybe in through the mouth, in and out through the nose. And then maybe in through the nose, out through the mouth. And we're just pulsing. Just go easy. Now you can see I'm watching some folks at home. They've already started to integrate their hands, which they can. That's completely fine. Here our knees are kind of acting like little pumps. We can get our wrists to pump. We can get our elbows to pump. Shoulders to pump. It's really whatever you can tolerate to help loosen you up. The shaking helps us establish equanimity. If we're too far on one end of the spectrum, we can shake ourselves to evenness. So if we're feeling anxious and nervous and worried, put on some music, stand there and shake. Could be the other, like if your mind is going super active, you might even be in a super good mood, super happy, but you can't focus. Put on some music and shake. Just about 30 more seconds here. And just look for those spots that need a little bit of loosening, a little bit of attention. 20 more seconds. About 10 seconds now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then we just stop. And now we just enjoy that feeling, that tingling sensation, all of our cells alive and awake. Let's begin with some elephant walks. We'll take our feet just a little bit wider than shoulder width, maybe a little wider. Kneecaps point forward. If we can, we'll turn our toes in a little bit, turn our heels out a little bit. Take the breath in. Take the breath out. Bend our knees slightly. Keep our chest lifted. Push the behind back. So if you're familiar with rearward shift, this is the rearward shift. Hands on our knees. And now we just alternate. Squeeze one leg straight. And then alternate. Squeeze the other leg straight. And just repeat. It's called an elephant walk, I suppose, because elephants walk slowly and deliberately. That's what we're trying to do here. Now, as we do some repetitions, start to loosen up. You want to try, you're working on pushing your behind back. Keeping your chest up, working the behind back. And the further and further you can get that behind to go backwards, hopefully you'll notice, in a good way, some tension that runs the outside of your leg. The backside, outside of your leg. We try to keep the chest up if we can. Squeezing the leg is what helps the stretch. Let's see if we can work our way back to a standing position, nice and easy. Good. So part of the magic and even the science of this stretching sequence is the quadriceps, the muscles in the front of the leg. When these muscles get tight, it forces the muscles in the back to get loose. So the more we can kind of squeeze those quadriceps, the more we can get some release through the hamstrings. Okay, so now we turn our feet forward and our kneecaps forward. This is going to affect the middle hamstrings. We take the breath in, take the breath out, bend the knees slightly, push the behind back, trace the thighs with your hands, and we're in our rearward shift position. Now we go again. We squeeze one leg straight, and then we squeeze the other leg straight. We alternate. And breathe. Pay attention to your footprint. You want to have a complete footprint on the mat or the floor, wherever you're doing this. Sometimes people will let their ankles roll. We don't want the ankles to roll if we can help it. We're trying to push the behind further back. And just slowly, gradually, maybe getting deeper into a hinge, maybe not. It's not so much the depth of the walking. It really has to do more with getting that quadriceps to squeeze so that we can get the hamstrings to release. Okay, nice and easy. Start to walk our way back up. Nice and easy. Good. And hopefully you felt that kind of in the back side of the legs. Now we're going to go for inner thighs. We're going to turn our feet out a little bit. Tiny little bit. And of course, you can adjust your stance as you go. Everything else is pretty much the same. We take a breath in. Take a breath out. Bend the knees a little bit. Push the behind back. Let your hands trace your thighs. And we're in kind of a externally rotated rearward shift. Now here's the difference. We're going to straighten one leg. In this case, I straighten my right leg. And I should feel my right inner thigh at least tone. Now I use that to pull myself to the other side. And I should feel that inner thigh muscle and pull the other way. And repeat. And the same thing, even though we're probably going a little more side to side than the other elephant walks, but we're still trying to push our behind back. Keep your feet flat. Push your behind back. And if you're not quite feeling the stretch, you might need to take your feet a little further apart. It's whatever you can tolerate. It's really about trying to get that behind to go back. Just a couple more. Work your way back to center. Work your way back to standing. Nice and easy. And then we can toe heel or just wobble ourselves back to hip width apart. Okay, good. So even though those are hamstring stretches, hopefully you feel that kind of all around your hips in a good way. So now let's do our low back, low front stretches. If you need a little less intensity, you take your feet wide. If you want a little more intensity, keep your feet close. Let's do the low back stretches. In this case, left ear comes to left shoulder, We drop the left shoulder down and we kick the right hip out. There should be a little bit of tone in your core. There should be a little bit of tone in your muscles. So we're not completely like ragdoll. There's a little bit of resistance to help support the bones and the joints. Now, because we're doing the low back stretch, we're going to turn our rib cage only. Turn the rib cage toward the ground. So there's two actions here. The hips are going to the side. The rib cage is turning toward the ground. And we should start to feel a little bit of stretch in the low back. If we're not quite there, it's the right hand that's going to come up and behind the skull. And it's that right elbow that points to the ceiling. So it's opening up the side a little, but it's also helping to intensify the low back stretch. If you're not quite feeling it, then you can try to extend your arm. The straight arm creates more of a lever, and we can direct that right into the low back. So we're just double checking. Hips are going to the right, and the breastbone is trying to turn a little more toward the floor. Breath in, breath out. Now we go in reverse to come out of that position nice and safe. Good. And we'll try the other side. Breath in, breath out. Right ear, right shoulder drops down. Kick out that left hip. And we start with a side bend. This just gets everything in the right place. It gets everything warmed up and ready. Now, since we're doing the low back stretch, it's the chest bone that's going to start turning toward the ground. The hips are going to kick out to the side. The chest turns toward the ground. But try to keep your chest up. So you're just rotating from the ribs. We're not forward flexing, we're rotating from the ribs. Now, if we can, left hand comes up behind if we need that. And maybe we straighten the arm if we can tolerate that. The goal is to get some tension, some nice tension right where the low back kind of meets the belt line, somewhere back there. And just double check. Hips going to the side, ribs turning. One more breath in. One more breath out. Reverse the sequence. We come out of it nice and easy. And we should feel nice low back stretch. Yeah, okay, good. Let's try the other side. I beg your pardon. The other side of the body, the front side of the body, we'll do the low front stretch. Okay. So we take the breath in. Take the breath out. Left ear, left shoulder. Left shoulder drops. We kick the hips out to the right. We kind of start in the same position, but now we're going to get into the front. Now, because we're stretching low front, it's the chest bone that's going to turn toward the ceiling. So we have this side bend through the hips. Your hips are still going to point forward. So your zipper, your belly button for the most part should point forward. Don't let your zipper turn toward the side. Keep it pointing forward. The rib cage is the only thing that turns toward the ceiling. Now, if you're not quite feeling the low front stretch, right hand comes up behind. And maybe that top arm comes up by the ear. And we're looking for a pure side bend from the hips and a little bit of lateral flexion and rotation from the ribs. One more breath in. Breath out. Reverse the direction and come on out nice and easy. And hopefully you feel that a little bit in the low front. So we're getting these opposing muscle groups that help keep us upright and help the spine move well. Hopefully you're feeling some blood rushing into those areas, which is good. We'll go to the other side now. Right ear, right shoulder. Drop the right shoulder down. We kick out the left hip. And because we're stretching the low front, it's the chest bone that's going to turn more toward the ceiling. Keep your hips pointing forward. You might need to even do a little counter rotation from your hips. Chest bone toward the ceiling. If we need to, left hand comes behind the head. If we need to, top arm straightens. And we're just looking for that nice little tension, little bit of stretch on the low front. 2 more breaths. Now we go in reverse, unwind out of this nice and easy. I hope you found this video helpful. And if you're looking for a method of yoga that's low impact and actually can help rehabilitate your back, it's a method of yoga that I created because I've had chronic back pain for 45 years, but I've been able to manage that pain through my method of yoga that I call functional yoga instruction. I've been told several times that I should be bedridden or on workman's comp, but through this method of yoga, I've been able to strengthen what needs to be strengthened, lengthen what needs to be lengthened, and I've been able to manage my back issues for decades. So click on the link below to find out more about our affordable online options. If you have questions, comments, or concerns, please let me know in the links. Go forth and be awesome. Thanks.